Hello everyone, my name is Jose Shmuel, and today we're going to look at the effects of the ketogenic diet on exercise performance, weight loss, and health status. Between 1975 and 2016, worldwide obesity rates have nearly tripled. 70.2% of adults are considered overweight or obese. So how do we solve this issue? With the growing necessity to find a solution to combat the obesity epidemic, the ketogenic diet has been promoted as a superior method for weight loss and for improving exercise performance. So before we dive into the research, I'm going to provide a bit of background information on ketosis, how to monitor ketosis, the macronutrient percentages that constitute a ketogenic diet, and the adaptation period. Let me go back. Ketosis is a condition of having high concentration of ketone bodies and related products in the bloodstream and tissues. Ketosis is monitored via blood or urine samples. Recently, it came out with a breathalyzer that is used to monitor ketosis. Ketosis is caused by severe restriction of carbohydrates. Typically, this means less than 50 grams per day. And ketone bodies act as alternative energy sources that supply energy to the central nervous system, muscles, and organs. Typically, a ketogenic diet will be greater than 50% of kcals coming from fats, less than 20% of kcals coming from carbohydrates, and varying amounts of protein. So this can be anywhere between 15 and 40%. And the physiological adaptation period is between 3 and 49 days. Now we're going to look at the effects of the ketogenic diet on aerobic exercise. So a 38-year-old professional/elite triathlete experiencing a decrease in performance as well as physiological issues. So these were gastrointestinal distress and excessive fatigue. Was placed on a ketogenic diet. Her carbohydrates were reduced from 73% to 12%. Fats were increased from 14% to 75%, and proteins remained at 13%. So within 2 months, there were increases in perception of energy during and between training sessions, less perceived hunger and fatigue, and reduced need for daytime naps. Cycling power output increased by 20 watts, and run pace increased at the same training heart rate, and nutrition was no longer required during long duration training. So this was training sessions that lasted about 4 hours. And the symptoms of gastrointestinal distress ceased to occur. And then 2 out of the next 3 Ironman events resulted in personal best times. Another study was conducted on endurance athletes to examine the effect of a high carbohydrate diet on a ketogenic diet on 45 minutes of cycling at 82 plus or minus 2% VO2 peak. There was no significant difference in heart rate, ratings of perceived exertion, oxygen uptake, or respiratory quotient. A third study examined the effects on submaximal, maximal, and supramaximal performance after being on a ketogenic diet for 6 weeks. So 20 men were divided into a high-fat, moderate protein diet group or a control group. The control group basically was following like a Western-style diet, which means high carbohydrate. During a 45-minute cycling bout, work output in the high-fat, moderate protein group significantly decreased. So in parentheses, you can see that their work output decreased by 18%. Researchers conducted a meta-analysis on the effect of high-fat or high-carbohydrate diets on endurance exercises. There were a total of 20 studies used that included 218 subjects. The average intensity of these tests was 78% VO2 max, plus or minus 8%. The mean time to exhaustion was higher in the high-carbohydrate group versus the high-fat group. Overall, the average effect size was negative 0.60, which means that there was a moderate effect. So essentially, the high carbohydrate diet was more advantageous over a high-fat diet for optimal endurance performance. Now we're going to look at the effect of the ketogenic diet on anaerobic exercise. So 8 elite artistic gymnasts were placed on a ketogenic diet. Anthropometric measures and strength tests were taken before and after the implementation of the ketogenic diet. Now, as you can see in the parentheses, a lot of these strength tests actually all of these strength tests were body weight exercises. Retesting occurred 3 months later, with the only difference coming from athletes consuming their typical Western diet. So training intensity, training volume, and exercise selection all stayed the same. There was no significant difference in anthropometric measures and strength tests. Another study examined the effect of a 3-day ketogenic diet on untrained athletes during a 30-second bout of supramaximal exercise. The ketogenic diet group and the high carb group engaged in 2 all-out 30-second Wingate tests on a cycle ergometer. The low carbohydrate diet resulted in reduced mean power output without altering maximal power. Additional studies following similar parameters also demonstrated similar results where peak power and power decreased significantly. Now we're going to look at the effect of weight loss, or the ketogenic diet on weight loss and health status. In an 8-week study on the effect of a ketogenic diet and non-ketogenic diet during surplus, so eating more calories than what you need, in addition with resistance training on body composition in trained men. Body composition was obtained using DEXA scans. After 8 weeks, there was no significant reduction in fat mass or visceral adipose tissue in the ketogenic diet group, while the non-ketogenic diet group and control group saw no reductions in these areas. Furthermore, there was no significant increases in total body weight and muscle mass in the ketogenic diet group, but the opposite occurred in the non-ketogenic diet group. So essentially, they ate more calories than they needed, but the ketogenic diet group did not gain any additional body weight. Now, a meta-analysis was conducted on the effects of the ketogenic diet versus low-fat diet for long-term weight loss. The only trials that were included in this meta-analysis were those that met the age, diet, follow-up period, and BMI criteria. As you can see in the parentheses, it has a description of each of these categories. So for this meta-analysis, 13 studies were used that included a total of 1,415 individuals. The ketogenic diet group experienced significantly greater weight loss reduction. The ketogenic diet group experienced significantly greater weight loss, reduction in HDL cholesterol levels, increase in LDL cholesterol levels, reduction in diastolic blood pressure levels, and reduction in triglyceride levels. Now, it may seem, based on all that information, that the ketogenic diet is superior to a non-ketogenic diet, but the researchers did mention that although the results may be statistically significant, they have minute clinical significance. Now for the conclusion and future research section. The current research available does not support the claims that the ketogenic diet is superior for improving exercise performance, losing weight, or improving health status. Most of the research that did support these claims had several limitations, such as small sample size, missing data, poor design, improper tracking of ketosis, and improper adaptation period. So most of the research that I looked at, only a handful actually tracked ketosis using blood and urine samples, which sounds kind of crazy, right? Like, how can you not track ketosis? But in fact, a lot of the research that was published, they don't track ketosis. So it's hard to say if they're really in a ketogenic state or not. These researchers are just assuming that based on the diets that they were following. So their data isn't really useful. Additionally, the research indicates that training status, exercise intensity, exercise selection, and the macronutrient percentages may play a role in the results. Future research is needed to properly assess the effects of the ketogenic diet on exercise performance, weight loss, and health status. Lastly, future research should focus on weight-categorized sports, field-based sports, and strength training exercises. Just one more point before I'm finished. In the previous meta-analysis, the weight loss on the ketogenic diet group was significant, but we're talking about like 1 pound, which for the general population may not seem as very important, but for sports like boxing or MMA, where making weight is highly important, 1 pound can really matter, because in MMA, if you don't make weight, you lose 30% of your fight purse. So thank you for watching.